Okay, how's the sound? Sound looks like I did it correctly, so here we are, once again. So, normally I would give you a campaign diary, but this time it's a little different. You see, this week I had a couple players drop out. My usual thing is I go if we have a majority of players, but groups, at least my game shop group, because I run D&D at my local game store, as well as, with some other friends and shit. My game shop group usually gets a little skittish when it's like just three people. Like it'll kind of be cool, but like in the group chat, they even said, "Oh, I don't know. Do we really want to move forward without both our paladin and our barbarian?" Um, and then someone else in the chat was like, "Oh, well, as long as we're not headed for any like bigger encounters, I'm sure it'll be fine." They totally are, because lest we forget, the last time we left off, they were in the middle of this fight against a bunch of Jackalware warriors and a few other non-lycanthrope warriors who were swinging bolas at people, trying to like tie the Jackalwares and the people together so that the people would be restrained and the Jackalwares would be biting the crap out of them, which had been working so-so, but they were getting towards the end of that. But they had also alerted the rest of this floor or to their presence. And spoilers, basically everybody on this section of the floor, all the warriors, are set up in this big final offensive to prepared for the players to come down. I have extensive notes about people ducking in and out of doorways and the formation and everything. I'm not like a tactical mastermind, but yeah, they've got they've got a room with like 20 people who are waiting for them past this initial challenge. So, when I saw that in the thing, I thought, "Hey, this might be a good opportunity to test something that I'm working on." A little while ago, I peeked in on a game jam hosted by Baron Durop, the dude who does Dungeon Masterpiece. And the theme was like they give you three random retro video games as inspiration to make a dungeon. And I looked at some of the samples of what games you could get, and I saw one that inspired me so much and I thought was so cool. I was like, I can't enter this competition, and also I don't think I quite have time for it, which is going to be kind of funny given where I ended up. I don't think I have time for it, but this really inspires me. So I guess I can't actually enter. I did enter and like I got my inspiration. I didn't like it as much, so I didn't do anything with it. But I am going to use this. I once thought that a ninja castle would be super cool, and that idea still persists. Campaign before the current one at the game shop, I ran a ninja castle, but it wasn't very ninja-y. I kind of got side distracted with this idea of, you know, it being a place where a white dragon has taken over and he's doing his stuff and messing around. There are ninja in there, but it's kind of subdued. I also used that same castle for my Robin Goblin series. So, if you were around for the Moonlit Castle, it's that. And I think it's good. I think it's fine. Can we downgrade further? I think it's okay. No. I think it's fine, but it's not a ninja castle. When I think about ninja castle, there's some ideal that is hazy, and no that I am chasing still. And the inspiration that I got from that game jam, because the inspiration that I saw was like use use Mega Man 2, Ninja Gaiden 2, and uh, Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, as like inspiration. And I was like, okay, seeing this, I immediately am inspired. Maybe not to use all of it, but to use some of it. I'm going to make, I decided, 5, actually 6, interlocking one shots. So they're not really one shots, I guess, but you could use them as one shots. And each one will be a section of a ninja castle headed by a ninja master. And the whole idea is you fight these ninja masters and you take their cool ninja weapons, Mega Man style, and use them to beat the other ninja masters. And then there's a little twist at the end that I got inspired by a friend. Like a friend of mine made a suggestion, and I was like, yeah, that's true. That's cool. Because like these things usually end up boss rush. And I was like, that's actually really great. What you just said, that'll really help for later. So I have been working on that. And my main friend group that I play games with, the GM said, "Hey, I'm going to be stopping like my game for a little bit. I'm going to be doing something else because Nioh 3 came out, and I'm really into that, and I want to do something with that." And I was like, "Okay, cool. You're going to do some Japan. I'm going to do more Japan, but mine's going to be more frivolous. Hey, I got this ninja castle, 5 ninja masters. You fight them and take their weapons, Mega Man style thing. Do people want to try it?" And they were like, "Sure." I'm making it. There's a different game jam. I'm part of a Discord with a bunch of other YouTubers who, come May, are going to be putting out single 5-room dungeons. For those who don't know, 5-room dungeon is a type of dungeon. There's like a blog post about it that you could look it up. But basically, it's a basic formula for a night of entertainment in a very simplified dungeon, though you could expand it further. Room number 1 is a guardian, some creature or some feature that prevents, like, makes it make sense why people haven't gotten into the dungeon in the first place. Then room number 2 is either a puzzle or a role-playing opportunity. And then room number 3 is some kind of hitch or setback, or worse comes to worse, a room where you double down on the type of gameplay that your players like. Room number 4 is the boss room, and room number 5 is like the reward, treasure, revelation, something like that. So, I'm going to take my inspiration from the one game jam I didn't enter, and I'm going to way overdo it with the other one, because they're all making one 5-room dungeon, though someone on the Discord asked, can we make multiple? And they were like, sure, if you've got like the time and ability. And me, not being a career content creator like the rest of them, yeah, I do have time. I'm marginally unemployed even, so marginally, not really. So I'm making the stuff for that one, and last Saturday, when some of my game shop group didn't show up and the players were like, I feel a little unconfident moving forward in the main game without 2 of the other players, I was like, I have this one part of a Ninja Master scenario if you would like to do it. It's Shadow Dark. They've played Shadow Dark before. I've had them play Shadow Dark before. And they were like, okay, cool. And we did that. And then I also got to test a different one of those Ninja Castle, Ninja Master sections on my main friend group. And that is what I'm going to talk about, because those are the games that I did this weekend. So first, my game shop group. It's kind of funny because basically I gave a choice. Actually, no. Game shop group, I did not give a choice. I came with the Master of Blades and their lair. And it went pretty well until it didn't. So the first room, the Guardian room, is basically just, it's a room, there's stuff, there's low light, it's thematic, and there are these 4 supports in the room. And I had a blade ninja hiding inside one of those supports. And basically, I would give the players one round of like looking at stuff. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I move through like that. And then after they'd done that, that one blade ninja was going to pop out and attempt a surprise attack. One of the players actually started looking at the supports and kind of found, not kind of, they found like the little seam of the secret door on one of the pillars that the guy was going to burst out of. So he was examining it, and then I had the blade ninja try to burst out, but he rolled a one, and so it just thunked, totally ruining the surprise. And everybody was like, "Oh, okay." And then they all got in position. And then one of the guys who had like a big shield was like, "I'm gonna get in front. I'm just basically gonna like post up with my shield." Shadow Dark, one of the custom classes, is basically a Viking guy. So the Viking guy player that I had for this was like, "I'm gonna get in front with my big shield. And I'm just gonna try to hold him in there." The blade ninja was eventually able to like force his way out, but then everybody just ganked him. Just and you might think, oh, maybe that's a failure. And like people had fun, and I'm down with that. Though I do think that in the future I'm going to have two Blade Ninja ambush in the first room instead of just one. That's something I don't know. That's something that I'm definitely struggling with because sometimes I have like cinematic brain where like, oh, it's one enemy. And cinematic brain does not match up with how role playing games work. You throw a single enemy at your players basically anytime, it's going to dissolve almost immediately. I was kind of cool with that because it's only three players, 3 to 1. If this takes down, it's fine. In fact, I was trying to something that I do is I try to cheat, not cheat, but like the ninja was hiding and trying to get a surprise attack on people. I was hoping, oh, if the ninja's outnumbered, one surprise round, even if they beat the crap out of him after that surprise round, it'll be okay. He'll have made his point. I didn't expect him to roll a one, but that's just part of the game. So he clunked and people saw him, people beat him, and then he didn't get to use his ninja technique, which I'm proud of. But that ninja technique eventually saw light in a deadly way. But I will elaborate on that later. They beat the crap out of him. They found that in his post he was hiding in, there were also stairs to the next room. Uh, I rolled for a chance of him having loot on him because that's something that happens in Shadow Dark. But also, forever ago, I had a friend who made like a really simplified game system, and we rolled for loot all the time. And I remember thinking, this is fun. I would want more from a game, a campaign than this, but this is kind of fun. Rolling for loot's kind of fun. People like it, and so I was trying to emulate that here as well. And the loot that they rolled was basically like a leather armor ninja uniform, which gave the players the idea one of us should dress up as a ninja and try to confuse people, which was cool and helped. So they do that, they go up the stairs, and they then get into this room, which is, in this case, in the little 5 room dungeon format, in this case, I had room to be a role playing opportunity. There is this big axe stuck in this block in the middle of a room, and there was this big door, like the big doors that had this huge chain across them that locked them. But the axe is sentient and prideful and doesn't, it won't let you wield it unless it thinks you're worthy, and also thinks that the ninja just left it here as like a joke or like a mistake. One person was dressed like a ninja, so immediately the axe was like, "Oh, you've come back for me. Oh, wonderful. I knew this had to be some kind of joke. Please hurry on, hurry up." And so the players had fun, like kind of poking fun at the axe. The ninja guy who was disguised was like, "No, they left you, man. They left you. They abandoned you." The axe was like, why would you say that? Why would you say that?" The Viking player like picked up the axe and was like, I will use this." The axe was like, "What? No, come on. There's only one of me. You got to be special, bud." But the players managed to like convince the axe that he was worthy. Otherwise, the axe, it's sentient and it'll bend out of the way of stuff if it doesn't think that you're worthy of it. He uses it, and it's obviously the axe is the solution. If you can convince the axe to let you use it, and you can hack through the chains, bam, you get the door open. People had fun. That room worked flawlessly. Wonderful. So then they get to the third room, which is you could call it not that much of a setback, but whatever. We do what we do. The third room is this long hallway, and it's like 60 feet long, and there's like a swinging blade, and then 5 foot space of emptiness, and then another swinging blade for like 6 blades. But secretly, the 5 foot spaces between the swinging blades are pressure plates, and if you step on them, there are slots that open up along the walls that shoot shuriken out at you that pin you in place, making it easier for the swinging blades to hit you. Basically, no. The pressure plates are where the swinging blades are swinging through, and we're on initiative. So it's easy to pass through the blades if you just wait until it swings by and then go. But if you just walk across, the pressure plate will depress. You'll potentially get pinned. I gave players like a dexterity save to see if they get pinned or not. They weren't getting pinned. But the interesting part that happened was the dude, the Viking player who Seawolf is what Shadow Dark calls it. The Seawolf player who had the axe was like, well, we just use the axe to like break through those chains. Can I just start snapping these traps? And I had not thought of that, but the answer was yes. I had him roll attack rolls, but not damage, because this thing breaks stuff like this. Yeah, thank you. Also, welcome, Potato Kingo. I didn't have him like roll damage because the axe just snaps things like these, but I did have in my notes that there were Blade Ninja who would pop out, or at least one Blade Ninja who would pop out if the players were having too easy of a time. To make it harder, the Blade Ninja basically would try to trigger the traps himself, because basically the players were just having the Seawolf guy snap the swinging blade, and then he would like basically press down on the plate in front of him once he caught on, and then trigger the trap. But because one of the characters had disguised themselves as a ninja, when another ninja popped out to like interfere with them, the characters were basically, I made some rolls and stuff, but the characters were basically able to bluff the ninja who was in here to kind of make the trap harder to interfere with into thinking that they were allies, that the disguised player, is an ally, were enlisting other allies, and they convinced that guy, that enemy ninja, and then just basically got to pass through. So room 3 solved due to unforeseen but still very cool player ingenuity and some good rolls and some deception, deceiving the ninja. Cool. Room 4 is where it all went south for the players. So they move on and they get to room 4, the boss room. It's big, it's got a lot of stuff in it. There are weapon racks. There's this giant skull, this giant dragon skull in like the middle of the room, just kind of on display. There's like a chair and a bonsai next to the chair and scrolls on the sides and things like that. There are also these 2 mannequins basically that have like armor on them. So in here, there are a bunch of valuable objects, because in Shadow Dark you level up by finding treasure, and so, there's stuff to get. But also, I intend for this place to have a ninja ambush too. I intend for there to be 2 Blade Ninja, and then the Master of Blades himself, and they're all going to try to surprise the players. So basically, I give the players 1 round of going where they want to look at stuff before the ninja attempt to make their move. Now, the part where this all goes south is thusly. I give the enemies in each one of these 5-room dungeons ninja techniques, iconic ninja techniques. And the Master of Blades and the Blade Ninja themselves, their technique is called Tate. and it's named after there's this PlayStation Shinobi game, if you've ever heard of it. It's just called Shinobi, I think. But it's like for the PlayStation 2. It might have another subtitle. But basically, in that game, there's something called Tate, where if you cut through an enemy, they'll kind of like pause or flutter, and then you have a limited amount of time to cut through more enemies. And the more enemies you cut through, the more damage you deal to all of them as a whole. The idea being, if you cut once you're done with the time limit and you've cut through a bunch of enemies, a little short cutscene will play where you sheathe your sword, and then all the enemies like burst in half. The cool classic, kind of more samurai, but I guess ninja too, because the game's called Shinobi after all, technique. And I thought that would be really cool. So in my thing, I gave the Blade Ninja's signature technique is the Tate. And the way that I wrote it was, the Blade Ninja, makes an attack against an enemy. And if that attack hits, they get to make another attack, but it has to be on a different person. And they basically get to keep doing this until they run out of targets or they run out of movement. Because they need to be within your movement range for you to be able to move and hit them. For every target you hit, you roll 1 damage dice. This attack does D8 damage, but if you hit 3 people, you do 3d8 to each person that you hit. If you hit 2 people, you deal 2d8, but you do it to both of them, like that. I thought, oh wow, this is so cool, this is so deadly, this is crazy. And it was a little too crazy, as it turned out. So the ninja and potential. Another funny thing is, I had intended for, okay, in these different sections of my ninja project, you encounter 1 or 2 basic ninja, and then you get to see the trademark technique first, and then later you already know it's kind of coming, so you can more strategize around it. But because that first ninja failed his roll and everybody just beat him before he got to use his Tate, it completely took the players by surprise, first off, and turns out it deals too much damage. So 2 Blade Ninja and 1 Blade Master of Blades pop out of places. One of the mannequins springs to life. There are trapdoors that 2 others come flying out of. The first ninja goes, he strikes 1 character, he strikes another character, he misses his 3rd attack, but I'm like, okay, that's 2d8 to the both of you that got hit, and it just kills both of the players. Because Shadowdark is like lower hit points and stuff, but maybe lower than I expected. And then the Ninja Master attacks like the 1 person that lived, and I was like, oh, well, he only gets to roll 1d8. Oh, 5 damage. And the player's like, I have 5 hit points. That's me too. So things went pretty great until that point where, boom, just killed them all. And the players were good humored about this and had, they weren't angry. They definitely still had fun. But one of the players did say, hey, maybe you should like change that, because like with how much health we have, there's like literally nothing that I could do. What's the deal, dog? And I was like, yeah, since I'm developing this and I'm gonna like put it out for free, I wanted a play test, and so I wanted their feedback, and I invited it. And that's kind of when one of the players was like, I don't know, man, maybe there should be like a cap on how much damage that technique does or something. And we talked about it a little bit. We talked about like some other stuff, but for the most part, things seemed to work okay and people were down. So don't tell anyone. But I did go back and change it. Now the Tate ability doesn't escalate like that. Now I think the Tate ability is just going to do 1d8, and maybe on the minor Blade Ninja 1d6. It's just going to roll 1 die, and it will do that damage to everybody they hit. It's not nearly as deadly, but maybe that's okay, especially with like the hit point totals. It's really easy to go overboard when you want something to be deadly and dangerous, then go, maybe that was too much, you know? So don't tell anybody, but I've walked it back. And when I get a chance to test it with my second group, we'll see if it's too much or too little. The Master of Blades actually has like 3 things that he can do, as opposed to the minor ninja that just have the tate, or like the secondary ninja that have tate and they can do the shuriken throw that pins you to the ground. In theory, the Master of Blades would like he gets 2 attacks instead of 1, like the rest of his minions. So in theory, the Master of Blades would like throw shuriken, pin you to the ground, which makes you easier to hit, and then that would set you up for a tate attack. But he didn't even get to do that because, like you said, damage just blitzed everybody. And then he also, because I am a fan of Sekiro and I was looking for something else to give him, he has like a defensive attack that, like, if you miss an attack on him, you make a strength save against him. And if not, he like unsteadies you, opening you up so that he gets like advantage on the next attack that he makes against that one person. None of that came into play. Hopefully, next time we'll get to see, because there are 2 groups. My Game Shop group tested the Master of Blades layer, and that's how that went. My main game group got to test the Master of Illusions layer, which took me a little by surprise, actually. If you've seen some of my community notes, I put up a community note about this project and that I was going to play test it with some people. And I asked, I put up a poll and I was like, who do you think the players, what ninja master do you think the players are going to choose to fight first? And I thought it would be fun to prioritize like polishing whichever one my YouTube audience thought they were going to pick first. And I believe that I think Master of Blades was the one that actually won. So I thought, okay, if my main group chooses Master of Blades, then that'll be cool. And they almost did. I made a community post about this recently. They almost did. Game Shop group who got killed by Master of Blades is Saturday. My main role-playing group of friends is Sunday. And the Sunday game, they talked about it. They almost picked the Master of Blades. I thought, oh, good, that's polished. The other stuff's kind of rough. I'm still revising some of it. They almost. But then there was one person who said, hey, if the Master of Illusions, if the boss from the Master of Illusions like comes and messes with us while we're doing the other ones, which is not something I thought of, but I love the idea. But one of the players was like, oh, but if the Master of Illusions like comes and messes with us while we're doing the other ones, that could be pretty difficult. So we should probably take care of them first. And I was like, okay, son of a bitch. And so we got to playtest that one, which ended better. The players didn't all die. This is a group of, I think, 5 people, 5 players, so it's already pretty good. I think they rolled tougher characters. I think they got better like hit point rolls. So I think that also helped them. But I will now talk about how that went. The lair of the Master of Illusions starts on a bridge with the gate to the main complex right in front of you. Well, not right in front of you. Players are coming across the bridge, and a single illusory genin stands guard in front of the big castle gates. People assumed that there was some kind of trick or trap here, and there really should have been. Once again, this is me doing cinematic brain, which is dangerous, but in this case, it kind of worked. The illusory genin can create illusions of themselves, shadow clones, basically. That works similar to how mirror image works, if you're familiar with that classic D&D spell. Basically, they create some clones, and they create 2 clones, so there are 3 of them total. They can flank with these clones, which means they can get advantage on attacks against people. And every time you strike at them, There's a roll made, and if I roll a d6, and when there are 3 clones, if I roll a certain number on the d6 or higher, you hit a clone and it dissipates. If I roll lower, if there's only 1 clone, the odds are worse. That's basically how it works. One of the players is actually playing a ninja themselves, because Shadowdark has a bunch of custom classes, and one of them is this ninja who ingested black lotus dust and learned secret arts. Its description is super cool. So the ninja player tried to like sneak up on them. Other people made a direct assault. The illusory Genin made copies of themselves, and people were swinging, and it basically went fine. Like, the shadow clone trick worked fine. It did what it needed to do. People were a little surprised there wouldn't be like more trickery, and I have since gone back and added more trickery. What I didn't do this time, but I will the next time I play this, is I'm going to have the illusory Genin be standing on the bridge, but they're going to be standing just before a gap in the bridge because there's a moat below, and this gap will be covered by an illusion, so people won't be able to see it. There will be a hint on the bridge, like the bridge will be partially damaged in a way that if you're paying attention, you might be able to catch something's funky, and if you don't, then you just rush forward and you fall into the moat. And then the illusory Genin will just throw needles at you from across the gap until you can like get around and get them. I think that's what I'm going to do in the future. But for this one, they were just there. People ran up. I keep on wanting to say she because of the game art that I used, but the ninja can be any gender. It's fine. They fought. They cut through shadow clones. They defeated them. They moved up to the castle gate and found that the gate was fake. It's fake, real fake doors, everybody. And then after a little bit of searching, some people found some scratch marks under the statues that flank the gates that indicate that they could be pushed. People pushed one person started pushing a statue, but then like when they tripped, which I intended to be like a sign that, oh, there's an illusion camouflage as a little stash that has some treasure in here. But when the person pushed initially and then kind of fell, and I described them kind of falling into the ground a little bit, they just gave up on that. The other person moved the statue that was covering the stairs. They went down the stairs. There's a trap that sprays hallucinogenic dust, but the players were looking out for that. Actually, because this one is less fleshed out, someone was testing for traps, and I decided that it made sense that there would be a trap on the stairway, and I improvised the hallucinogenic dust trap if you step on one of the steps, which the players avoided. In Shadowdark, if you look for a trap where a trap is, you find it. Like, you don't need to roll. If the trap is a pressure plate and someone's looking exactly where the pressure plate is, you don't need to roll to find it, which I think is common sense and you should do in any game, but, whatever. They go down the stairs and they get to the next room, which is a bit of a puzzle. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about my personal philosophy about puzzles or at least the one that I have now. I think that when you make puzzles, unless you have players in your group who are really into puzzles, just lob it. Just soft underhand toss your puzzles. Now, what I mean by that is I've taken to just making all my puzzles really simple, something that you could solve relatively easily and relatively quickly, and I think it works a lot better. You don't have the one guy who doesn't like puzzles freaking out in the background because, oh, this is going to take forever. And you don't have people just kind of scratching their heads and then one person goes, okay, fine, I'll do it, and like pushing. This room number 2, the lair of the Master of Illusions, you enter into a 20 by 20 room, and there are 3 other rooms. One to the left, one to the right, and one straight ahead. The left and right rooms look empty. The forward room looks empty, but has doors. The doorways out of this room teleport you. If you go in through the front, the north door, it teleports you into the left room. If you go through the doorway to the left, it teleports you back into the center room. If you go backwards, teleports you to the right. If you go right, teleports you forward. Simple. Simple. The two empty rooms actually have spike pits underneath the floor mats, so there's a little bit of danger, but it's relatively simple. And I think it worked pretty well because one player asked, like, oh, how worn out is the floor? And I was like, okay, that's kind of hard to tell. I did have him roll for that, and when he rolled not spectacularly, I told him, well, the floor's really worn because he was looking for tracks to indicate, is there a path that's got the most tracks on it? And ultimately I said, well, no, there are a lot of tracks that lead through the room repeatedly, which was kind of my own hint, you know? So he's like, okay. I got kind of lucky, or the players got kind of lucky, because instead of moving forward like I thought they would, they moved through the left initially, and they ended up back in the room they came in, and we're like, oh, And then the person asked about tracks and didn't get too much information, but the same player was like, I want to pick up, is there a pebble that I can pick up? And I said, yeah. And they picked up the pebble and they threw it through the door they went through and asked, does it hit me from the way we came? And I was like, yeah. And then he asked, oh, does the way we came, does it still look like stairs? The stairs we came down? And I said, yeah. And then after, like, the players decided, okay, let's go to the right. They went to the right. They were in the way forward. Whole thing took maybe 10 minutes. And I think that that's good. If you think about it, when you see people tackle puzzles and riddles and stuff in movies and in movies and stories, they don't stand there for like 5 hours trying to figure something out. Or most people stand around bored and then one person's trying to figure it out. There's a little bit of struggle. Usually there's a little bit of struggle, but they have an aha moment and then they get through. I don't think this is a perfect one-to-one, but I think when you make the puzzle easy, when it's just better. I think it's just better. Do you want everyone sitting around bored because the puzzle's supposed to be challenging? Or do you want people to get it, go, oh, cool, and then move on? I think the second is way better. And that's my puzzle advice. Unless you have someone who's really into puzzles, in which case go ahead and make it harder because they enjoy it and they're going to take care of it. So they solved that really easily. There's an illusionary pit right in front of the door, so there was a little bit of trying to get over that. Some people went there. I gave them a dex save. They almost fall into the pit. The pit has a skeleton and some treasure in it, but they never found out. It's surprising how not used to looking for treasure a lot of people, myself included, are. Because in my Shadow Dark game that I am playing in, the GM once recently said, oh, you guys miss a lot of treasure, and that's, I carry it still. But back on topic, there's a little bit of finagling with rope. It's kind of funny. The ninja dude was like, the random background I rolled was rope. And I've watched YouTube videos about tying knots. And supposedly, if you know how to tie knots, you're a rope wizard. Can I do something with that? And I was like, sure, because that's kind of how Shadow Dark works. If you say, hey, I have experience in this type of thing I'm trying to do based on something on my sheet, you can say yeah, you can say no. It was a little difficult. It was a slight hitch, but they made it across through the door and into the room. Potato King Go says, I'm a good old-fashioned loot goblin. If there's somewhere, there's loot. Good instinct. Good instinct, Potato King Go. Maybe you would have done better and found more treasure in my thing. Maybe. Maybe we'll play together one day. Maybe we'll have to see. They got into that, and they got into room number 3, which is the setback room, if we're following the 5-room dungeon model. And this room It worked fine, but it took a lot of time and needs some polishing. Basically, this room, the third room, was a mirror maze, just like Hall of Mirrors, but it's a maze. But the mirrors are magical. If you look at the mirror, your reflection comes to life and tries to kill you. The reflection doesn't step out of the mirror just attacks, makes an attack from like within the mirror, and then if it connects, you get hurt. And I was having the players roll attacks on themselves, and it was a fun time. However, I still feel like it took more time than it should have. Basically, and I was also worried about something else that turned out to not be a big problem, but it could have been. So this is a maze of mirrors. If you look at the mirrors, there's a chance, there's like a 50-50 chance, a 3 and 6 chance is how I was rolling it, that your reflection comes to life, tries to attack you. And then you can fight back in a couple of ways. You can destroy the mirror, and then there's a deck save to avoid getting, cut up with glass. There was one person who tried to like make an attack in the air but position it so that it would hit his reflection. That absolutely would work, but he was missing his attacks or wasn't doing super great. The best way to foil them, or the big way, is to just not look. If you can't see it, the illusionary reflection attacking you can't hurt you. The way that I made this, I thought, okay, the mirror, your reflections attack you if you see them. Eventually, the players will have to figure out that if you don't look, they don't hurt you. But then there's no obvious exit in the Hall of Mirrors. So once the players go, we're just going to close our eyes and feel around the room, then illusory Chunin, the next level up, come out of hidden like trapdoors and attack you. I ended up not doing that second part because people fighting their mirror clones, like the mirror clones were happening a lot, and people fighting their mirror clones was also taking a while, which not good. Or at least I felt like people were having fun, but it came really close to dragging. I got really lucky. One of the players was playing a custom class called a Seer, which has a spell that player took that lets you see through illusions and see secret things. Otherwise, I feel like the players would have just been kind of moving around, not sure what to do for much longer. Basically, once the player cast that spell, they not only found one of the secret doors that the illusory Chunin were going to be using to attack them eventually, but he was also able to see that, oh, the mirror reflections are illusions. One of the other players eventually connected, oh, if I just cover myself, am I going to get hit? So they figured that out at roughly the same time. The Seer player spell discovered this like secret door, and then the together, like he and the ninja player got the door open. Since one of the players was a ninja, I even told him, oh, you know that in certain fortresses there are these trap doors that are used to attack you. And they use that to basically go to room 4. The problem here is, or the revision that I'm gonna make to this room is I'm gonna make it smaller, and instead of a maze, I think I'm just gonna make it a simple, a simple zigzag, so that players discover much faster there's no obvious way out of the room. And then I have written in my thing, in my notes that I will later publish, that the illusory Chunin coming out and attacking them only happens if the players like figure out the trick, cover their eyes, and start blindly feeling. But I also made a different revision as well, which I will blather on about in a little bit. So they take this alternate route through a trapdoor to room 4, the boss room. Because they're taking an alternate route, I have them come out of like a hatch on one of the walls. which means I'm going to let them roll stealth and maybe surprise the enemy if they don't make a lot of noise. And they didn't. They were careful. One person, like the ninja player, was like, I'm going to I'm going to open the passage, the secret door that we are now at a little, and I'm going to look. And I told them, basically, I described the scene. I was like, hey, you're in this dimly lit theater. There are seats with figures slumped on chairs, and then there's a stage, and in the middle of this stage, there's this big, hulking figure clad in black leather, holding a double-bladed staff. Beady yellow eyes glare out from beneath their hood. And he's a big guy too. He's like 10 by 10 as opposed to normal people who fit in like 5 by 5 spaces. And so I had thought, ooh, it's going to be really interesting if the seer player like casts their spell and whatever, but he didn't initially. So fun fact. Well, actually, a little bit of a fun fact. The Master of Illusions has an ability. The Master of Illusions has the Shadow Clone ability that I already talked about. He also has a second ability that I'm going to talk about later, and I changed it. But his special weapon, right? The whole premise of this is Ninja. The whole premise of this is like Ninja Mega Man. You're going to take the cool weapons from bosses that you beat. This boss's weapon isn't a weapon. It is instead a pair of bells. I've had this idea that I love in my drafts of Ninja Castles, the whole time. And this reincarnation I used for the Master of Illusions. His thing is this set of bells that if he rings it and you hear the chime, if you're one of my players in either group, don't listen. By the way, spoilers. If he rings the bells and everybody who hears the bells falls under its spell, and the boss turns invisible but leaves an illusionary copy of himself behind, then obviously he uses that invisibility to make a surprise attack on whoever. Because the Master of Illusions, or the current Master of Illusions, is like a runty Oni that still hits like a truck, it's still devastating. In a game where like a D8 is a pretty good amount of damage, this dude does D10. So, normally, what I do, and this is something that I do a lot, normally what happens is if the players don't conceal that they're coming, the Master of Illusions basically prepares an action to ring his bell when the players come in, going invisible, and then initiative starts, and people aren't sure what's going on, and then suddenly somebody gets attacked. He leaves an illusionary copy behind, so people attack that first, and it disappears. It's potentially a really cool moment. Because the players took an alternate path, I let them roll stealth. They rolled successfully, so that guy didn't know they were there. The ninja player, who was also playing a halfling, he's a halfling ninja. That's funny, right? And in Shadowdark, halflings can once a day go invisible for 3 rounds. So the halfling used his invisibility to sneak around and prepare for the fight. And then the others were getting ready themselves, but they more just came out of where they were. They didn't really sneak. They were like, oh, we have the element of surprise. Okay, we're just going to charge. Which is fine. So the battle started. People moved. People attacked. I think that the surprise attacks missed on the boss. Well, the boss got really good initiative, But then on top of that, the initial surprise attacks that some people made missed. So the fight kicks off. Two more illusionary Chunin minions pop out of slots on the stage. The Master of Illusions takes up his bell, gives it a chime. People are like, okay, he's still there? Whatever. Only for him to like reappear and like slash into somebody for 2 damage, but still. Everybody freaked out much more about the fact that he could attack twice. Because everybody assumed that, oh, enemies just only attack once and we only attack once. And it was like, nope. Strong enough enemies attack twice. The Seer player saw his chance to shine and was like, aha, I have that spell that lets me see illusions and stuff, because the not only was the Master of Illusions doing his I ring the bell, I leave a copy behind, but actually I'm invisible trick. But in addition to that, we also had the illusionary Chunin minions who are like, they both shadow clones, so there are like 3 copies of each of them moving around. They weren't that effective, honestly, but they did their job, I suppose. And so the Seer player is all like, oh, it's my time to shine. I'm going to use my ability to see through illusions and secret things. And then he like points out where the invisible boss is. He's like, there he is. And the boss just turns towards him and he's like, I am in danger. And because boy was he. I gave people bonuses on hitting the true copies of anybody who had shadow clones up, and even though you got disadvantage attacking the Master of Illusions because he was invisible, you at least knew where he was because the player was pointing them out. And they became visible whenever they attacked, but they would go invisible again afterwards. The boss beelines for the Seer player, attacks him, is gonna kill him. But the player has a weapon that has the property that if you're gonna get hit, you can sacrifice the weapon, destroying it, but like guarding against the attack. Very epic moment. It looks like he's gonna die, but he sacrifices his stave that just explodes. Tragically, as I said, the boss has 2 attacks. But this is something that's kind of a bummer, actually, because strategically, this is really helpful. The boss really wanted him to die, so instead of attacking and then going invisible again, he attacked, that attack failed, the stave ate it, and then he attacked the player again, which meant he was still visible and easier to hit. Strategically, good moment, valuable, useful. Story-wise, cinematic-wise, I feel a little bad because he played his trap card and like, I destroy my stave to like survive the attack. Cool. The boss attacks you again and this time puts you down. And he was like, no. It happens, but like in that moment, I kind of wish the boss only had 1 attack. Just for that moment. I guess I could have had him go invisible after failing, but like, I don't know. Didn't feel right in the moment. Just a side gripe. So things are going well. People are attacking. The Seer is now down. However, people get their first taste of what you do when a player goes down. People are like, oh, the Seer player is like, hey, I made this water that like heals you with one of my spells. And people are like, oh, it heals you? And then he looks a little closer and he's like, oh no, it stabilizes you, but it doesn't restore hit points, so I'm still gonna be down. And people are like, your spell doesn't make like a potion? I thought it made a potion. It's called potion. It doesn't give you hit points back. And it's like, no, but it will stop me from dying. I'm not sure if the player enjoyed it, but the ninja player had an intense moment of, oh man, do I go and make an attack on the boss, or do I help my friend who is dying? Which I like. I even stole something that is like a house rule where I had the player in Shadowdark, when you're dying, you roll a d4 and then you add or subtract your constitution modifier. And that's how many rounds you get to roll a d20. And if you roll a 20 on any of those times, you restore 1 hit point, you're back up. If you roll anything less, it's a failure, and you just have however many go arounds until you die, unless you roll a natural 20. Other characters can make stabilization checks on you to try to stabilize you, but it's a DC 15 int check, and speaking from personal experience, that's harder to make than it sounds, especially when people's stats aren't that high. But if you can stabilize somebody with like a potion or something, that's obviously much easier. The ninja player decided to not attack and stabilize their friend. The fight continued because the boss used their 2 attacks, and they were still visible. In both groups, we had someone play a sea wolf, like a Viking type person. The Viking person in this player group rushed up. He's visible, no disadvantage or anything. He swings and he strikes. I must ask again, if any of my players find this, to not listen. To just trust me and not listen. And now I will continue. So, I foreshadowed that third ability that the boss had and how I changed it. The third ability that the boss had, and technically his minions also had as like a secondary ability, was the ninja art of substitution. That Naruto shit where you think you hit somebody, but then they disappear and you hit a log instead. What I did was I gave them an ability where when you get hit by someone, they have to make a DC 12 intelligence check. And if you fail the check, log. You hit a log, you didn't hit them. But if the and then the enemy gets to teleport somewhere. But if you succeed the intelligence check, then the enemy still teleports somewhere, but the attack still hit. So they teleport away, but then they're clutching their side. You're like, you didn't substitute fast enough. I got you. Like that kind of moment. It's kind of illusion. Not really, but kind of. It's kind of tricky. I thought it would be fitting. But we were already getting towards the end of the session, and this was the first hit that someone had gotten on them, and not for nothing, but the player who got the hit oftentimes gets frustrated when they roll low or when their stuff doesn't work. So between those 3 things, I just didn't have the heart to have the first good hit the players get on him, and I just didn't have the heart to go, you might have missed, actually. Which is something I struggle with. I am very pro player, despite how much I talk up like challenge being important, and I do believe that. But there are moments like this where I, find it difficult. And afterwards, I decided to take that ability off, if only because I think that from a statistical standpoint, if someone has the ability to turn invisible and the ability to make shadow clones, that's 2 different ways of avoiding damage. Do we really need to pile on with a third? Like, even as I'm describing the substitution technique, I think it's cool, and I think it makes sense, and I can very easily envision it being cool, but at the same time, it might be a little overkill for a boss that does a bunch of damage and has a decent amount of health, though I did lower it. Potato King. No 5? No 5 what? I don't follow. Forgive me. Potato King go. No 5? Number 5? Are you saying no, he should have had 5 avoiding ways of not taking damage? Are, are you saying he should have had 5 ways of avoiding of not taking damage? Uh, are you saying no, more, more? Well, anyway, I figured, this enemy already has a decent amount of health. He's already got the shadow clones, and he's already turning invisible and leaving the clones. All right, fair enough. I clearly will have to go back to my notes and be all like, well, the next when I test this with my different group of players, I clearly need to turn to them. If anybody complains, it's like, why does this dude have so many ways of avoiding damage? I have to just tell them, well, because one of my viewers said that they should, and like, I don't know, one of the viewers was like, fuck them kids, and I was like, yeah, I guess. Maybe we'll see. Maybe I'll lower his health, but do that because that was part of my concern. The enemy, and this is a rough draft of an enemy, so I'm fine with changing it as I did. But I was looking at the enemy, I was like, I don't know. It's got like the shadow clones, it's got substitution, it's already turning invisible, it's got 30 hit points, which is a lot in Shadow Dark. I think maybe too many. Should we really be high hit points? I can avoid damage really easily, and also I hit really hard. I don't know. He is an ogre posing as a ninja master, so like, but at the same time, My current draft, pending an upgrade prompted by Potato King Go. My current revision, 15. 15 hit points? Maybe. I actually put it down to 20, but maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll put it down to 15, but put substitution back on. I don't know. I'll definitely like write. In fact, I'm gonna write it right now. I'm gonna make a note to myself. 15 HP, but put substitution back on. Camera's not focusing. You can't. Maybe. I actually kind of like the substitution thing, to be honest. So maybe we'll see. The draft that I have in my notes right now has him with 20 hit points, no substitution, but I added like a sneak attack damage bonus to him. So he's got my current draft, the one that I came into the session with, I feel is maybe too much. The one that I have in my notes right now is 20 hit points, no substitution, but they do an extra weapon die if they make like a surprise attack. And since they're turning invisible and attacking, that basically means like potentially every attack can be 2d10 instead of 1, which is really, really dangerous. But it is only like hitting one person at a time. So it might be better than the Master of Blades original thing, which I have also changed. If you know, and that is where we ended. So it failed the one shot test, I think, because the mirror hallway was too long, but they beat the boss. The boss did take down one of the other players before the fight ended. So we ended with one person down but stable and one person who was down and bleeding out. It would have been a good cliffhanger, but the players insisted that like we take care of this right now, which I understand. And also means like they're invested. They managed to stabilize one of their big warrior guys. They managed to stabilize Viking guy on their party. And so we left off with technically one room to go, though they don't know that, where there's like the Master of Illusions horde and everything. And they got, among other things, Laugh of a Butterfly, which is what I am calling the bells that he uses. And that's how that went. Pretty good. People made it through. I think The biggest problem that I had with the whole thing was the hallway of mirrors was too long and took too long, which I think is an easy fix. Uh, I may go back and make less hit points but deadlier and put substitution back in. I don't know. I'm really kind of going back on that because I thought, I don't know. But on the other hand, it's really cool. Substitution is a cool classic ninja trick. I was even thinking if I don't give it to the illusionary ninja, who do I give it to? I was thinking about giving it to somebody else even, but I'm not sure if it would be on brand for any of the other ones. Because we've got the Master of Blades, the Master of Illusions, we've got the Master of Hands, which spoilers is punching and throwing and whatever. We've got the Master of Fire and we've got the Master of Poison. Who would substitution? Who would substitution jutsu if not the Master of Illusions and his ilk? I don't know. And something else is kind of interesting. I really do believe in like the simplified design that like Shadow Dark does, and the less is more. But I'll tell you, I still find myself wanting to put more abilities on these enemies. Like the whole sneak attack thing. As they are, the enemies don't do like sneak attack damage. But the other day I was thinking it feels like they should, but I didn't want to put too much on them. Like a typical Shadow Dark enemy has like a stat block and like no special abilities, or maybe one special ability or special attack. And it's only bosses that get like 2 or 3, which I think is good. It's easier to run, that's for sure, which I also think is good. I don't know about you, but there are plenty of times where I walk away from a 5th edition game or whatever, and it's like, oh, I forgot this ability or I forgot this thing. So I myself, whenever I design stuff, I'm trying to stream it down anyway, which seems to be in the air because I've seen like ads lately, a lot of ads for Nimble 5e, where they really crunch down the stat blocks, which cool, looks cool. But at the same time, I don't know, you think of little bits and bobs that like make sense, and you're like, oh, but I want to add this or I want to add that. So it continues to be a design exercise and challenge for me in restraint because it's really easy to add a bunch of stuff. I'm really mixed about Pathfinder, but I definitely think I'm not sure if it's a good thing about Pathfinder exactly, but I do kind of understand the desire to make every detail represented by a mechanic in game. The idea that you could paint a picture with mechanics instead of having to have people just believe you when you say you're good at this or that does sound cool in theory, but in practice, I chafe a little bit at like how many bits and bobs they do. Like, no lie, if you tell me this game has a million options, that kind of turns me off. Because, like, I don't know, man. I tend towards a less is more attitude naturally. There's some stuff that I like about it, though. And which is good because my friend is his Japan thing is going to be Pathfinder because when the OGL hit, he tried out Pathfinder and then went, I'm never playing anything else. Pathfinder's great. I love it. Pathfinder second edition, to be specific. And I was like, all right, that's cool. I mean, again, I'm mixed on the system, but there's some cool stuff about it. And now that I've done that, which I hope was fun to listen to, informative, you're going to be seeing a video about the Ninja Master stuff, as well as like PDFs that will come out that you can just download, because I'm going to like put them into my little Scribus free publishing software thing and make them available as part of like the thing I'm doing it for, and not just me, though I am doing it for me too. But now that I've talked about all of that, and you'll see more of that in the future, I did allude to something else in my tagline for this stream, so buried here at the end is a good place to put it. I recently had a thought about Oathbreakers. I have opinions about paladins and likewise Oathbreakers. Um, it really bugs me when I see someone's like, "I love playing paladin." I'm like, "Oh," as in, there's one time where I saw a tweet where someone's like, "Oh, I love playing paladins." I was like, "Oh," and they were like, "Oathbreaker's my favorite." I'm like, "Oh." I have a short speech about paladins I could give, but I'm not going to right now. I am going to say that I had a thought. We should not have the Oathbreaker. The Oathbreaker should not exist. I had this thought because if Oathbreaker exists and you let players play it, because it's technically not a player class, you just can let people do it if you want, but you're technically not allowed to play it as a player, but people just do it anyway. Yes. Potato King Go says yes, and yes, it's true. I think that we should not be rewarding paladin players for breaking their oaths, is the thought I had. And because I thought it was true, I had to blue sky it. Nobody reacted to it, but I did. As a paladin, like, you are tied to abiding by your oath and your faith, and it defines the class. So it actually is kind of shitty to go, oh, but if you break your oath, then you get to be this other cool thing. Like, no, man. If you break your oath, that should be bad. That should be like bad. Where is the drama and where is the tension if you break your oath and you get turned to and are told, "Oh, you can just be this other class now." No. If you break your oath, if you fall as a paladin, you should not get rewarded with a new class. You should just be playing a fighter now until you redeem yourself, if you redeem yourself. And I think it gives bad motivation to someone, or I think it's bad to have in the back of your head, well, what happens if you fall as a paladin? Well, you just become an oathbreaker, I guess. Like, that's bogus. Oathbreakers should not exist. We should not be rewarding people for breaking their oaths. And that's my thing that I alluded to in the title of this stream. Shouldn't do it. Shouldn't exist. Let's not reward people who fail. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. So I got to test out 2 of my 5 Ninja Masters with different groups. I had that thought about the Oathbreaker. There's actually a small convention that was held for the first time in my town. I live in a small, like, rural town in the mountains, and there were some people who put on a gaming convention. I found out, like, very suddenly. It was like Friday and Saturday, and I found out Friday morning. I checked that out recently, and while I went, like, right at the start and there wasn't a lot of attendance and it was really kind of small, I saw, like, an Instagram story where they had, like, a bunch of people, and that was cool. It was called ThunderCon. I don't like that they had AI art for, like, one of the things on their website, but I kind of felt like, well, maybe this is being put on by older people who don't know any better or something. Plus, I really want to support, like, a local gaming event. Nothing is near me. It would be cool to not have to drive, like, hours to get to a gaming convention. I typically don't go to conventions, like, at all. Like, the only conventions I've ever been to are SAC Anime a few times, more than a few times. And then one time where I went to, I'm forgetting the name of it, but there's a convention that's farther. And we rented a car and we did all this stuff, and it was okay. I like anime, but I'm not super into anime, so it doesn't quite fit. It'd be cool to go to more like tabletop conventions because I definitely feel like I'm more in that space, especially these days. I may be talking about a ninja castle, but I'm talking about running a ninja castle, so it's where it's the divide. I got into a game of Dungeon Crawl Classics at this ThunderCon, which was pretty fun and pretty cool. A couple of the players were kids, so there was a little, obviously the tempo was a little different than if it was like all adults, but like it was cool. I hope it happens again. Be cool to have something local that I could attend. I got to talk to the guy who was running it. He was just like saying hey and being nice to people, and so like I got to say hey to him, and he's like, "Oh hey." I thought it was a little weird because he asked if I was there to like run stuff or play stuff, and all the other people here were in like ThunderCon shirts, and I was not. Also, if you're organizing it, shouldn't you know who's running games and who isn't? Maybe? I don't know. I just told him, no, I'm just here to like check stuff out. He was like, oh yeah, cool, awesome. Friendly guy. I wish they had I wish they had promoted the convention better, to be honest. Would have been cool. My weekend was pretty good. It was pretty fun. I actually felt pretty happy, not to like get into it, and I'm not going to, but I don't know. I feel neutral a lot of the time. And I do like things and I do have fun, but when you're when you're feeling really good is only when you really notice the difference between normal or I'm feeling okay and wow, I'm feeling like really good. I'm having fun, things are great. I'm getting to play test the stuff that I made, and that's really cool. Man, it'd be great to just kind of be here, be feeling good all the time. But alas, it cannot be so. Games were fun. I did game stuff. That was my weekend. I did game stuff. It was cool. And now, I don't know. This is a good stream bit. But I also intended to try playing video games again over on Twitch. But with the time, I'm wondering if I should. Mm. I don't know. Got some other project stuff I want to get to, so maybe not. Yeah, I think maybe not. I think I'm going to call it here. So, thank you for joining me. I hope you have a good day, a good rest of the week. New Robin Goblin episode should be coming out tomorrow morning. Hope you have a good one. Cheers.